So welcome along to episode 6 of Downtime at DT. The podcast has been called by one Brian Vella as brilliant, so going to take that street cred right there. Joining me today is Head of Strategy here in Sydney, Barry. I can't pronounce your last name.
I was going to say you're scared.
I was scared. It's you don't want to insult your guests. So Barry
Mowszowski, but it's an absolute balls up of a surname.
Let's just go with Barry M.
Yes. So
Barry M, Head of Strategy. What is Head of Strategy?
It sounds like a real wanker title, to be honest with you. But rather than Head of Strategy, it's more like strategy lead in the sense of trying to drive just fresh thinking, trying to provoke different ways of seeing things and getting our clients and ourselves to have the courage to do more interesting things. So it's trying to, in Sydney we've got a great team of Nick and Henry that we're hopefully going to grow soon. And thinking of myself as an extension of the Melbourne guys as well. Like we're all actually one strategy unit trying to impact the business.
So there's a lot of ideals there. There's a lot of like, hey, let's do these amazing things. But what are they grounded in that allows you to influence decisions that clients make? Because you'd be like, let's do this thing and make it go viral, but that still needs to have some backup to be able to persuade them to actually go ahead with that.
So in my creative agency career, I did exactly that, where you sell bullshit and projected belief, and then that's enough for a client. But what's nice about DT is working with guys like Leon, where you can ground it in a commercial model and something that's with a bit more rigor that allows you the room to have a point of view, allows you the room to sell something because it's grounded in more than just opinion and frankly, more fact than opinion. And the thing is that a lot of commercial creativity should be built on that, where there's rigor and data that substantiates a point of view and a recommendation, rather than just take it or leave it, this is our opinion, which is exactly why advertising has become more disposable today, because it's purely based on someone's opinion of what's good, and it's about creative risk, versus a more data-led way of storytelling, where you're reducing the risk because you're grounding in something more tangible.
Can you give me an example of something that you've done which is in that framework? Mm-hmm. Because, I've worked in advertising for more than I wanted to, mm-hmm. in a way. And we often get sort of briefs that are like, we need to revolutionize the way that people think about a pie, and we need to create more pie occasions. And I'm like, mm-hmm. like this is nothing. This means nothing to me. These aren't the way that real people think. So if you could give me a practical example of maybe something that we've done here at DT that applies a lot of the things you just said to me then.
Sure. So the one project I worked on was with the Macquarie guys on the benchmarking report. It was the most unsexy project. Yeah. Essentially, they had to take a big paperweight that no one read in terms of business development managers at Macquarie. No one read them, and they wanted us to digitize it. And Timothy, Greg, and the team did a killer job of doing it. But what was actually interesting was, asking the question, what is the purpose of that document from a BDM point of view once it gets to the end customer? And how effective is it? And when we started probing around the questions around, how many BDMs are there? How many customers are there? What is the conversion rate of once they actually give that to the customer? We discovered that once the customers were getting this document, this big paperweight, there was no communication chain back to the BDM to say, this is the needs of my business and this is how you can upsell me. So the problem wasn't the brief that we got to take a paperweight and digitize it. Mm-hmm. The problem was that the BDMs didn't give a shit enough to actually utilize it, and customers didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
In a completely lateral example, which didn't happen at DT, I worked on a brief for, and this is a dog's breakfast of a brief, for Selly's Liquid Hard Nails Extra.
Sounds sexy.
Horrendous. But essentially the new product was that it dried in quicker time. Mm. And it's horrendous brief, but the key audience were tradies.
Yeah.
And I was at a media agency at the time, and the way we looked at it was not as the creative agency wanted to do another ad campaign to dramatize why it dries quicker than the normal Selly's hard liquid nails, because their strategy was going to cannibalize existing sales of a product that was actually making them a lot of money.
Yeah, right.
But what was interesting was that how do you articulate the benefit of that for tradies? And the more lateral approach that I was the strategist. That strategist took from a media point of view was saying, let's ignore the product for a second. Let's actually think about how tradies live their lives. And I personified tradies based on this idea that they're human pigeons. Because if you think about tradies, they are exactly like pigeons in that they never have a home. You always see them out and about. You see them sitting on pavements. You see them eating their lunch on pavements at 11:30 in the morning. And they always dust off the back of their asses when they stand up. And pigeons and tradies have a lot in common because they go wherever the work is and they always nomadic in when they travel. So by personifying them as human pigeons, that set the stage for talking about their behavior. And part of the insights was that we could actually connect to tradies through their stomach as a way to getting them to think about the hard liquid nails product. So what we did was we created a whole way to upskill a tradie's experience around eating. Instead of sitting on the floor or sitting on a milk crate, we created a collapsible chair with an umbrella, with a branded umbrella of Cetti's Liquid Hard Nails, that we wanted to make them feel like a gentleman instead of like a human pigeon. So by eating lunch like a gentleman on the sidewalk with a deck chair, a pool chair like the beach, and an umbrella that they could collapse and put in the back of their truck, we created a visual spectacle for other tradies and people going by around the liquid nails. And after lunch, that's when they would go back and buy new products. We would then drive them back through a Bunnings to request purchasing that specific product because we were tapping into their stomach through food as well. So they would buy food by us sending them coupons in the morning. Then they would eat it like a gentleman on the deck chair and they would go in and request the product. So that wasn't a media, digital, that was a human solution to a problem, but we knew based on the numbers, that's where the behavior was that we wanted to shift. So that's what I mean by applying strategy to human problems.
That is a very, very robust answer to the question that I just asked, but
sorry.
It was...
Talk a lot, sorry.
Look, just a FYI to the current listeners, I'm a couple of drinks in on a Friday afternoon, so please bear with us. We've just come off the back of a pitch as well. Look, I find it really refreshing that you have that focus and it's about, and for me in my creative technology role, the focus is always about what drives me as a human or what drives us as humans. What is at the center of the human condition and finding a solution to that problem rather than let's do an ironic, funny video. I really appreciate that strategy, and I guess we're seeing some successes with that, and I'm really glad that you're here. On a personal note as well, there's the 2 Beers Love In coming on. So when you put on your strategy sneakers, one leg at a time, and you kind of start to come to the office, is there a spirit animal that you kind of call on and evoke to sort of get you into strategy mode, to empower you to keep going?
Yeah, I think what I learned coming up as a strategist is that there was this weight of expectation. You had to prove how smart you were to everyone else.
Yeah.
And it was about the brief you wrote and the language you used. And you suddenly realized that strategy is actually not about making you look like a rock star. It's actually about creating a frame of thinking and empowering everyone to get on board. So it's not actually about you, which is ironic for our industry. It's all about how many awards you win, and it's about being a star fucker for your own personal branding. But the truism of creativity and strategy is that people get on board when people are excited. People want to create something when they want to be a part of it. So the short answer to your question is
because that was the long version if you hadn't picked up on it, but we're going for the short answer now.
So you're tipsy and I'm actually sober. This is unfortunately my personality. The truth is that if you don't come to work passionate and wanting to make things better, then there's no need for you to come to DT, or there's no need for you to come to any creative environment, because people feed off other people's energy, not people's negativity and cynicism, which is why at our best, this is the best industry to work in.
So my question originally was, what's your spirit animal?
My spirit animal is running at 6 a.m, and I do tennis and running every day, and that's the way that my creative brain functions. So my spirit animal is resilience and tenacity. All
right. So how would you push that into the physical embodiment of an animal?
So I'm built like a cheetah. I'm very low to the ground.
Yeah, right.
And I can sprint pretty fast, and then I get exhausted. But the thing is with my personality is that you have to be ruthlessly efficient, because if you've got boundless energy, you have to spend it well.
That's a good answer. Took a long time.
I'm actually getting briefer.
Yeah.
I'm never going to be invited back.
We took a while to get there.
Sorry.
But cheetah.
Sorry.
Cheetah being the answer.
Cheetah. I have problems with questions and answers.
Look, the next question was going to be about why you're passionate in that area, but I feel like there's been a lot of reasons why you're passionate about this area we've already crossed. So I'm just going to kind of go into the next question is about what are you passionate about outside of the office and outside of strategy? What keeps Barry M up at night?
So I'm addicted to photography. And
really?
The way I live my life is every 6 months I pursue exotic animals. So I'm going to Tanzania and Rwanda in July for 6 days in safari, sleeping in the bush in an exposed tent, and then Rwanda mountain climbing with gorillas. And I'm obsessed with photography, meeting animals, especially animals around near extinction. And I'm trying to work out ways that our industry can actually drive protecting the animals as well.
Yeah.
So I'm consumed by everything from photography to meeting new people to eccentric things like collecting memorabilia. Like I met Novak Djokovic 2 weeks ago with Boris Becker, and he signed a shirt that he played in for me.
Yeah, wow.
And that means a lot to me, but to someone else, it's a piece of material.
Yeah, of course.
So,
look, check with me on Monday about how can we use our industry, technology, digital, whatever, to help save animals, because there's a few things I can talk to you about on that, which is ace. Look, you have a lot of skills that you do things with at DT. If I was to transport you back to 7th century medieval England, these skills that you currently have, how do you feel that they would fare in that period? And what job do you think you would have?
I would have been that guy on the sidewalk selling you products that you probably didn't need.
Yeah.
The type of hawker on the street selling you newspapers, and you would have to catch someone's interest very quickly to build an audience. Yeah. And it's the hardest job in the world. I think that would be the best use for me. I'm not saying that I would have been like a Shylock criminal type thing, but I could have sold you stuff that you invariably would not have needed. So I would have been probably a good sales guy.
Yeah, I can see that.
But without the intention to bullshit you, but persuasive enabling you to buy what I was selling.
Yeah, right, cool. Now, I guess, how did you come to be in digital and sort of focus on technology? Has that been something that's gone through all of your career, or is it that as a conscious choice you've come across?
So I always thought digital creatures were just bizarre and so siloed. So coming from a strategy point of view, from creative agencies and media agencies, it never made sense why someone was a digital strategist. Like, why would you anchor yourself in a medium where the trend was in the industry, no one wanted to be a radio strategist? So it was bizarre that it was a channel choice. And having worked in creative and media, what I actually realized was that it's not about the amount of spend in digital. It's about the fact that that's become just the oxygenated way we live our lives. And the blurring between the online, offline, that's actually what's interesting. And no other bucket of digital, creative or media is actually impacting in that space as much as digital agencies. But even the notion of digital is generic. So if you're going to start a communications business today, if you aren't digital at the core, you don't actually have a business. The question is, like an elastic way, how much of media do we offer? How much of creative services do we offer? So everything actually is digital now. It's more about the way you think and the way you engage and the way you behave than a title.
So I guess, there's you've been very forward thinking in how, it could have just been a channel. You could have seen it as a channel. It's like, hey, we do the TVC, and then we take the TVC and we also put that onto the internet. But you've kind of seen it as more of that's the future of where everything's going. So what is it that excites you about the future of internet, the future of technology and digital, and kind of where we are and where we're going?
So what excites me is less the rational, and this may sound slightly contradictory because what I said about data, but when you have ideas, especially in Australia, which is a small market, when you have ideas that people don't want to experiment with and give it a crack because a media person will say, oh, what's the reach? What's the audience? That's the beauty of thinking laterally in terms of creativity, because the right type of an idea will scale an audience. The right type of an idea will attract people into it. And I think that's what's interesting about digital, is that digital being a platform to create interesting things. What is the utility use of digital? What is the creative use of technology? not technology for technology's sake.
Exactly.
Which is why us as a creative technology agency is becoming a slight misnomer, because technology is now the core of everything. So why are we using the words technology? It's about enablement.
Yeah.
It all comes back to what is the quality of the idea. You can't dress up a beautiful website if it's void of an idea. And that's what's interesting about DT Sydney, is that we're actually looking in the mirror saying, what is our point of view? What is our idea that we're shaping? And how do we use technology and digital and creativity to deliver that?
So a lot of the ideas that you're talking about are often quite at odds with the way that we are approached by businesses and approached by brands to go about. So a lot of the times we've been approached where they have an idea and they want to say a certain thing or do a certain thing. How have you gone in sort of challenging them and kind of trying to reframe what they're trying to achieve?
So the younger version of me, and it depends on the business you work in, you definitely think, oh, client's an idiot, they don't actually know what they want. Yeah. The smarter way to do it is to over-deliver on what they want in the first place, and then buy yourself the credibility to upsell them on what could be.
Yeah.
And we've started experimenting on TA like that, and little pockets of leveraging the trust to say, what do you think about this? But grounding it actually in their business needs. And that's where you only get access to their business needs if you do a great job in the first place.
Yeah.
So it's a baby step approach, and you've got to bring everyone with you in doing it.
Yeah, cool. So Bluetooth headsets. Yep.
I look like a wanker. I walk around in a Bose version.
You wear high-end Bluetooth headset.
Well, I'm a pretentious brand guy in that way, but I do look like that wanker still in 2015 who walks and talks on it. But I'm not one of those people who keeps it in my ear just in case someone calls. Yeah, but right. I'm paranoid of radiation. It comes from being South African and having alarm systems at night and being scared that someone's going to kill you. Part of that is actually radiation from holding your phone to your ear.
All right.
You weren't ready for that.
No, you weren't. That part was not what I expected. All right. Moving swiftly along.
Michael is now awkward.
Yeah, quick fire round. Moving past the awkwardness round. Born. Where were you born?
Johannesburg, South Africa.
Clients you're currently working on?
Tourism Australia. I'm working on Macquarie, and I'm working with actually pretty much on every account with everyone in the business.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Two things you like?
I like people who are positively dissatisfied, who want to be better, who are restless to just be average. And I love sunrises. I love running through sunrises.
I have never done that in my life.
You can join me tomorrow morning, 10 to 6.
So you've just embodied the two things I hate most, which is running and getting up early into one activity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can still work with you at the same time.
What would you do if strategy didn't exist? Or the notion of digital internet?
Actually, what's interesting to me is not strategy. What's interesting to me is about making people better than they were. So what I love doing is, I love lecturing strategy courses. I love people saying, I'm not sure what to do with my life. What should I do? And helping people realize their best selves is actually a huge passion of mine, which is why I wanted to be a manager. Because being a manager is completely irrational. It's a pain in the ass. Yeah. You hear everyone's problems. And you get further away from the core thing that you love. But making people better than they were before has always been a passion of mine, which is why I'm excited to hopefully meet a girl, get married, and have kids. To raise things and make them better than they were.
So, teacher?
That's why I've been doing lecturing. Actually,
the
teaching, the giving back part. Why knowingly I send you invites to come to things in the business.
Lovely.
But it's creating a culture of everyone feeding in something rather than being selfish, coming to work, doing your job, and going home. Yeah.
Because no one wants that, and I really don't think that is the ethos of DT. I really love it because I come in and there's so many people I can learn from and learn from their passions, which is pretty much why I started this podcast, because there's every podcast I learn something amazing, and hopefully everyone else learns something amazing as well.
And it's great that you do it, but the truth is that life is made for people who show up.
Yeah.
And what's nice about this culture at DT Sydney is that increasingly there's less places to hide if you don't want to be here. And there's a culture of acceptance for those who show up.
Yeah.
And it's a fantastic culture here. And you're a big part of that.
Thanks. Look, I've kind of run out of questions. I feel like I want to ask you more questions, though. Maybe we can have a part 2 of Barry on Downtime at DT.
Well, if anyone's listened to this point, if anyone actually gives a shit to hear a part 2, then please send Mike an email.
More questions for Barry. There is one question that I've missed, actually. Who would win in a fight? This is the ongoing debate. A monkey with a knife or a great white shark that can breathe out of water?
Definitely the monkey. And I think I relate because I'm low to the ground and I'm quite quick. So I have to go with something that's actually my size. Like a chimp. Are you thinking a chimp? Because I'm thinking a chimp.
Chimp, yeah.
Definitely a monkey, because a monkey's all about scrappiness, survival.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely a monkey.
I'm quite amazed by this because it has actually just alternated between every episode. So it's like kind of a dead even. We're 3 and 3.
See, great whites can only move straight. Monkeys can pivot in any direction, and they can flip and they can jump. Monkeys actually have a much broader range of movement to leverage.
But they're also giant and weigh a ton.
You mean sharks?
Yeah.
That means that they're slower to move.
Okay. Let's agree to disagree. I hate that phrase.
Basically, it's a polite way of saying, I don't give a shit what you think.
Yeah.
I'm right.
You've seen through my ruse. All right, Barry M. That's the end of episode 6, the Brian Vella Brilliant Award-winning podcast.
I'm not sure Brian would give this a brilliant rating, but...
He said brilliant.
I don't even think Brian listens to these
there's
things.
an email that I can show you.
I'd like to see it, but Brian, I don't think you listen to this podcast, and if you do, I would like you to send me an email saying I did listen to this.
Have you heard the brilliant DT Sydney podcast, Downtime at DT? If you haven't, do yourself a favour right here. Episode 4 is with Chris Jericho, and stay tuned for the evolution of Mikey Ford's love child, which is a completely separate issue to the podcast. But there you go, Barry M.
I wonder if Brian listens to this instead of One Direction on the way home in the car. Do you think he does listen to this?
Let's do a test. Brian, if you are listening, if you would email me the phrase, Mikey, this is a brilliant podcast, and we'll confirm that on episode 7 of Downtime at DT. So Barry, any last words for our listeners?
I think it's all time that we go home and start this weekend. We've all earned it.
Cheers.